Jerry Jones did not appreciate the questions that were asked to him on Tuesday on 105.3 The Fan, but it was his answer that was really revealing about one of the biggest problems with the team. Let's get to it. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Prime Time. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays with quick-hitting videos such as this one. Jerry Jones likes to do one thing, and he likes to do it, and he's very good at it. He likes to keep people talking about the Cowboys. And after a 47-9 loss, he sure found a way to do it. He joined 105.3 The Fan, as he does just about every week, and he talked about the state of the Cowboys. And I gotta say, big shout out to RJ Shoppy, to Shan Sheriff, and of course Bobby Belt for the way that they handled it. Because they were direct, they were upfront, and they asked the right kind of questions. Despite what the Cowboys owner told them, they did an excellent job on that front. For those of you who did not listen to the interview, I'm going to hit you with a quick recap of it. If you already heard it, bear with me for a second and tell me if I'm lying in the comments. Jerry Jones basically started out all good in jokes and everything, talking about getting out of town at the right time because he's going to the owner meetings, doing all that. However, when the questions became a little bit tougher, and when the host began questioning Jerry about a potential in-season coaching change, that's when I think the tension was starting to be felt. First, it was about the coaching, and Jerry Jones interrupted the host. He was like, I'm not making any changes. I'm not making any in-season changes, so you can stop there. Basically, that's what happened. Because they were asking and comparing the situation to 2010 when Jerry Jones did fire a coach in season for Jason Garrett. I think Jerry Jones made a good point on that front when he did say, hey, 3-3 is not the same as 1-7, which is what was going on back then. I think that's a strong point, to be honest with you, and it relates to what we talked about on Monday about the pros and cons of firing Mike McCarthy, and one of the cons being you're still in the season. So making a change as drastic as that might end up costing you a shot at making the playoffs. But anyways, I think that was a good point on Jerry. So let's be fair with everyone here. I think that was a good point. Then he added that, hey, I don't think they're good in-season changes. They're inefficient, and they just are not good. Then it reached a whole new level when he started being asked about off-season team building and basically asking him what we've been talking about all year long, about why did the Cowboys take things so easily during free agency, during the NFL draft, during the trade portion, if you will, of the season when free agency is maybe already done and teams are getting better through trades as well, or maybe even at the same time as free agency. And I think that's when Jerry snapped. And I want to read you the quote for those of you who did not hear the segment. You can check it out on their YouTube on 105.3 The Fan. And then we'll break down why I think it is a massive deal that Jerry reacted the way that he reacted. He straight up told reporters or the radio hosts, this is not your job. Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That is not your job. I'll get somebody else to ask these questions. And if you thought, oh, funny Jerry, he immediately followed it up with, I'm not kidding. You're not going to figure it out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you are, or any 5 or 10 like you need to come to this NFL owners meeting I'm going to today with 32 teams. You're geniuses. You really think you're going to sit here with a microphone and tell me all of the things that I've done wrong without going over the rights? Listen, we both know we're talking to a lot of great fans, a lot of great listeners, and I'm very sorry for what happened out there Sunday. I'm sick about what happened on Sunday. Massive quotes from Jerry Jones here. First and foremost, telling the radio host that he'll get somebody else to ask the questions for them. Man, he is asking the right kind of questions. Again, shout out to Shan Sheriff, and shout out to Belt, and shout out to Choppy as well. they're not the cheerleader club of the Dallas Cowboys. They're supposed to ask what's going on with the team. It's not their problem that what's going on with the team is all negative because you just got blown out 47-9, which is essentially the third blowout that you've gone through this season. Because, man, I'm not here to say that the Ravens' loss was when they almost came back. I'm not going to say that happened in garbage time. But the Cowboys did get pretty damn lucky for them to be in a spot where they could win the game at the end of it, right? They needed to recover an onside kick. They needed a very fortunate roughing the passer penalty that I'm not sure was roughing the passer. But the Ravens blew you out in the first half. And sure, maybe you made a tremendous effort to come back in the second half, but you also got pretty lucky, and the Ravens made a lot of mistakes on that game. So I think it's fair to categorize the 3 losses as blowout losses, because at least at some point in those games, they were blowouts. They're obviously going to ask you these kind of questions, particularly after a 47-9 scoreboard. You're going to get asked the tough questions, and especially when I think this is a matter of Jerry being in the wrong for what everyone thought they were going to be in the wrong versus everyone being right when we were pointing out in the offseason, maybe this team isn't as good as we think it is, or as we thought it was going to be, even at the end of last year's season. And here's what I mean. You go into 2024, and you go into it thinking, hey, the Cowboys, right after the season, they're going to have to make some changes because this team needs to be better in the playoffs. And you're going from that to we don't know if we'll make the playoffs. And there are some reasons why you could try to find some silver linings and maybe some reasons to be optimistic about the rest of the 2024 NFL season. But there is a major one that is very clear, and I think that directly relates to Jerry Jones's lashing out on live on radio. And that's what we're going to talk about before we leave. But before we do that, let me talk to you about our friends over at Texas Card House. Because, man, if you're out there and you're looking for a good poker place to play, you got to go to Texas Card House, man. You got to join the premier poker experience at Texas Card House, where the thrill of the game meets the excitement of the community. And I've talked about this. When you're playing poker, when you're trying to find a good match, you got to find the right community. That's where you'll find in any of their 6 Texas locations, highlighting the Dallas and Las Colinas venues. Texas Card House offers a unique blend of luxury, sophistication, and camaraderie for poker aficionados. Whether you are a seasoned pro or maybe you're just starting out, maybe you're learning what a flush is, what a full house is, join a welcoming community at a top-notch facility located near you. And it is Tuesday, so that means it's $2 Tuesday over at Texas Card House, and you can get $2 draft beers if you go today. If you cannot, then don't worry, because you can check out the Low Ball Happy Hour every day from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. You know I'm a poker fan, man. You know I love to play poker. Been playing poker since I was 7 years old. Man, got to check out the Texas Card House, and shout out to them for supporting the show. The big problem that I think Jerry Jones cannot hide at this point is the fact that, sure, we can talk about Tyler Guyton getting better as the season progresses. Mike McCarthy can get up there on a press conference and talk about how these young players, just the fact they're playing, it's going to help them out in the long run, right? And I think he's talking about Jalen Brooks getting some play. I think he's talking about TJ Voss getting some play. I think he's talking about all that. Jalen Tolbert, I already mentioned Jalen Brooks. But at some point, you got to realize you have a defensive tackle problem because you did nothing at defensive tackle, even though we all agreed it was one of their top needs. You're going through the woes that you're going because your left tackle is not good. And you had Tyron Smith. Could have kept him. Decided not to. You could have had maybe some insurance policy, even at right tackle, because Terrence Steele was bad in 2023. And the only reason why you would have hoped that he was going to be better this year is because he was going to be healthier. You didn't know for sure. He was really bad in 2023. One of the worst pass protection tackles in the entire league. That is biting you in the rear end. You could have had better cornerback depth. Heck, you could have kept Stephon Gilmore, who was already on the team, and he would have occupied less cap space than Trey Lance. Decided not to do it. Decided to be, hey, I don't need a number 4 cornerback with experience. Who the heck needs that, right? And sure, you could talk about Mike McCarthy suddenly fixing the offense during the bye week like he did last year. But right now, the Cowboys have a personnel problem. And maybe they had a little bit of that last year, but it wasn't as big as it is right now. Because last year, your roster was better on paper in several areas. The starting lineups were better. The depth was better. There are some exceptions, like, say, linebacker. You had better defensive ends to back up Micah, to back up D-Law. You had better cornerbacks, which you had to tap into because Trevon Diggs got hurt early in the season, but no problem because it's Stephon Gilmore right there in the bench. We can keep Bland outside, and we've got Jordan Lewis back inside. That's a starting caliber trio of cornerbacks. But now your front office that famously was the least spending one free agency-wise in the entire NFL, and you're getting the results of it because this team might just not be good enough. And it doesn't matter how many adjustments they made, it might not be good enough even after those adjustments because you don't have the talent. And I think that's what really upset Jerry Jones at this live radio interview because they were talking about the game, they were talking about everything. The moment that it became about, hey, what about what you did in the past that is now being a consequence for you, that's when it got really defensive. Because I think right now, the Cowboys ownership, the Cowboys front office might be really looking at things and being like, well, we were not right about this team at all. We were not right about it. But hey, winning fixes everything. Oh, and by the way, there was a point in that interview where when RJ Shoppy was when Chance Sheriff, I think was who asked this, was bringing up the offseason, he said, well, we're not going to evaluate the past, what I did in 1970. This is something that he actually said. And Chance Sheriff, very rightfully so, pointed out, we're not talking about 1970. We're talking about this year. We're talking about what you did to build this year's team, which is a team that happens to not be good enough. It's a valid question, right? And speaking of going back to the past, one of the ace up there, the sleeves of Jerry Jones, who maybe goes to Texas Card House to play some poker, he said, hey, back in when I bought the team, everyone told me I was doing it wrong. And, you know, that's one of the calling cards for Jerry Jones these days. He always likes to go back to that anecdote. But if you cannot, if you don't want to talk about what you did this year, why are we talking about when you bought the team and it ended up being a good business decision, right? Winning fixes everything, as I said, and maybe the Cowboys, maybe they can pull off beating the San Francisco 49ers, right? The team that spent $70 million almost in free agency. Or maybe they can beat the Atlanta Falcons, the team that spent $255 million in free agency. Maybe they can beat the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that spent $137 million. And by the way, having paid their quarterback, Jalen Hurts, already. Maybe they can do that. The Cowboys, with their $20 million free agency spending, lowest in the NFL, maybe they can go out there and beat these teams. I wouldn't rule it out. But hey, you cannot hide behind the fact that, that a lot of people were talking about the Cowboys did not build a strong enough roster for the season. You cannot hide that when you're 3-3 and not looking competitive against good teams, because that's what the Cowboys are seeing right now. It's just bad across the board. Dak needs to play better, for sure. CeeDee Lamb needs to play better, hell yeah. Zach Martin needs to play better. Micah Parsons, when he comes back and he plays, he's got to be better. Marcus Lawrence the same. Eric Kendricks the same. You can say this about everyone on the team, but the team is not good enough. The roster is not good enough, and we'll see if the Cowboys change anything. For now, though, they're telling you they're not going to change the coaches. They're not going to change the players. Devontae Adams has been traded for. Amari Cooper has been traded for. You're not likely to see any buyer-type trades. So the Cowboys are just going to hope they practice harder, they play better, and everything goes back on the right track. We'll see how that plan goes. Jets general manager, no, excuse me, it was the owner saying status quo is killer when they traded for Devontae Adams today. You tell me if the Cowboys are acting like that or not. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my Alexa speaker going crazy for some reason right there at the end of it. Ladies and gentlemen, that will be it for me tonight. Hit the like button, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.